Today I'm going to talk about hydrodynamic studies, design and implementation of structures for ocean and marine applications. Actually, the previous speaker, Miss Anandi, has presented some of the work that I'm going to present now. And I would take it as a nice introduction of what I'm going to present. Before I go into the actual topic, these are some of the works that we do at National Institute of Ocean Technology. It is an autonomous body under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. We do actually, we are scientists, we are a research organization, and we take various components that are relevant to the society, and then we do research, and the endpoint of our research will be a product that will be seen outside, like the low temperature thermal desalination plants that I'm going to talk about now, and also the Pondicherry beach restoration project that we took up some time back. Okay. And we also work on energy and freshwater, where we installed India's first wave energy plant. And also we were working on backward bent ducted buoy that I heard someone referring in the earlier session. Okay. And we also develop components that go 6 kilometers deep in the ocean to study the seabed. We developed a remotely operable vehicle that goes 6,000 meters and connect or that can trace the seabed. We developed a crawler and a soil testing machine, again, that goes 6 kilometers deep and crawls around, collects mining nodules actually. And our project under that mission is to collect those nodules, crush it, then pump it to the ship that is above, floating above, and then transport it to India. India has a marked area in the middle of Indian Ocean where we have to develop these components under the part of UN program. We actually do end-to-end work for the maintaining of weather buoys. Basically, they collect the ocean parameters like sea surface temperature, waves, currents, okay, and also some parameters up to 100 meters below the sea also, so that we can track cyclones, we can help IMD predict the cyclone tracks. Okay. And we have a very efficient marine biotechnology team who talk about gene sequencing of marine organisms and all deep sea marine organisms, and also fish aggregating buoys and fish cages. Okay. And we have an acoustics team which does research about wave directionality and identifying various sounds in the ocean that are eventually helpful in security and defense applications. And also we have a program on gas hydrates where Krishna Godavari Delta, on the seabed, we have some huge amounts of gas hydrates, and we are developing technology where we'll be able to assess how much is there, and also in future, very distant future, extracting them. We have our own vessels which can go all the way up to Antarctica, and actually these one of the vessels support the Antarctica program that is carried out by one of our sister organizations, which is in NCPOR, National Center for Ocean, Antarctic Ocean Research. Okay, next slide, please. I belong to Ocean Structures team, and this slide gives a pictorial view of the projects that I deal with generally. We are working on low temperature thermal desalination plants. I'll be talking about the marine structures side of this plant as part of my talk today. But these plants actually, when you say ocean, surface temperature of the sea around India is around 28 degrees. As you go deep, the temperature of water decreases. When you reach a 350-meter water depth, you will get 12-degree water. So you have 16-degree difference in the temperature between top surface and 350-meter depth. And what we do in this LTTD plants, so to say, is we boil water at vacuum, and we get vapor at 21 degrees centigrade, that is room temperature. Now, which is pure. Okay. Now all we need is something colder than room temperature to condense it and produce fresh water. The islands of the west coast of India, Lakshadweep Islands, within 1 kilometer, you have this 300 to 400 meter depth. So what we do is we lay a pipe of around 1.2 kilometers long from shore to 350-meter water depth. Then we draw cold water from 350 meter. We have a sump where we have pumps, okay, so that cold water can be given to the plant. The surface water is evacuated at 27 millibar pressure so that we get vapor. And vapor is condensed using the cold water that we draw. And the plants, first plant we installed in Kavaratti in 2005. We operated it for 1 year and we gave it to the island. To this day, the plant has become the lifeline for that island of around 10,000 people. And right now we are in the middle of installing plants in all the 6 islands. This is one part of our work. The second part is the middle column. As you see, if you can see, it is Gujarat map is there. Below that, tall pole is there. Okay, this is a wind measurements platform. Basically, if you see the onshore wind capability for India, it reached a peak. Wherever we have wind resource availability, we have installed windmills. So right now, the next big step would be to go offshore. By offshore, we are talking about somewhere between 15 to 20 meter water depth to anywhere up to the economic zone EEZ, which goes all the way up to 200 kilometers from the shore. Right now, the first offshore wind turbine project that is being planned by Ministry of Natural Resources, they are thinking about 2 areas in Gujarat, Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Khambar, and also in Rameshwaram and Kanyakumari areas. So 4 areas totally. We installed wind platforms in both Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Khambat areas. Basically, what you are seeing here is an offshore platform in 25 meter depth, 17 meter depth actually, that goes another 17 meters into the seabed in very loose soil, okay? And the top part that you are seeing extends some 17 meters, I think 17 to 20 meters. So a total of around 50 to 55 meter long column is towed from Mumbai to Pipavav port, and it is installed there using a jack-up platform. And then a LIDAR is installed above it so that like a laser, it studies wind profile all the way up to 1 kilometer. This has to be done for any wind turbine allocation for 2 years so that the project becomes bankable, so that people can bid and install wind turbines. This is one part of the work that we do. And the third one we are talking about is the coastal erosion topic that is briefly presented. I will not be presenting anything on the theoretical side. We will be dealing with what we do and how we did. This is a steel wedge. Basically, I can call it a submerged groin. I don't want to spend too much time on it. We installed this platform in Puducherry. You can see on the right hand side of your screen, and the structure on the top part, the actual structure with people standing above it. And after we installed the structure, the beach that is formed as part of our work. Okay, next slide, please. So this is the introduction of my talk. Basically, I want to talk about hydrodynamic studies, okay, and their importance, okay, and how we make use of it in marine structures and marine or coastal structures. This is the entire outline of the talk. We'll be dealing with what are the wave loads and what are the structures, and also how we established how we went about for the marine components in the island desalination plant, and also the Puducherry beach restoration project. Next slide, please. Okay, coastal hydrodynamics basically it deals with wave currents and also wave current interactions. I am not going too deep into the theory. Basically, when we say waves, any project that we are talking about, for example, the Puducherry beach restoration project, first, the objective is obviously I want to restore the beach. Okay, so when I say I want to restore a beach, first of all, there used to be a beach which vanished over a period of time. So I have to see why the beach has vanished. Then I have to see what I can do. Okay, then the next part is in any of these coastal projects, when you say you will enhance one area, the result of that will be a different area will be eroded. Okay, just north of it or just south of it. So in general, if you have a harbor that came up or port that came up new, you will have a vast area that is towards north that will be facing a severe erosion. In general, that is not a should not be happening for all the projects, but necessarily for some of the projects. Okay, so study of wave patterns, historical study of historic wave patterns, what is the change and what caused the erosion, and also once you say you have a proposal for say restoring the beach, you have to study how it will affect the adjoining areas and try to do some model studies so that your studies are what you are proposing to be, and also finally implement it. These are the things that involve in the entire process. I would like to, without reading all these things, I would like to go in detail about how we did. So I will not be spending too much time on this. Okay, next slide, please. Basically, theoretical studies, when we say study, they have three components. One is theoretical, okay. Then physical studies like satellite study of satellite maps in terms of coastal erosion, okay, and trying to correlate it with various cyclones that hit the region, and then the numerical studies for which you need topography, bathymetry, okay, and also the wave climate and tides for that region, and also the currents for that region. Okay, now once you have that, you need field measurements also when you say study. Okay, then you have to estimate when you are talking about beach restoration or something like that, you have to see what is the soil transport and how it gets affected. Or when you are talking about you want to install some structure like a caisson or a or a anything, okay, you have to see what are the wave forces and things like that. So for which you may also need the wind forcing, because you want to predict the waves accurately. So you may have to see what are the winds historically and existing also for that region. Okay, so basically we'll be dealing with ocean hydrodynamic forces, loads, and suitable structure and protection techniques for a certain coastal area. All these things we normally do as part of the project. And as I am talking for the past few minutes, I'll be concentrating mainly on two case studies. One for a caisson for the low temperature thermal desalination plant, and the next one for a coastal restoration project. Okay, next slide, please. When we say ocean structure and the forces, what are we talking about? When we say load structures, we are talking about dead load, the live load. You have equipment load, you have wind load, then you have seasonal or events like earthquake loads and things like that. Okay, and when you come to ocean structures, you should also deal with hydrodynamic load due to waves and waves, currents, and tides. Okay, then buoyancy loads. Okay, then marine growth and corrosion and their effect, and also once you come to ocean, you have various interactions happening, and basically the analysis will be complex. And we should also deal with how we are going to install it. I'll be coming to the topic briefly. Okay, and also forcing and response of the structure. These are the things that we should be dealing with. Next slide, please. Basically, coastal and offshore structures are exposed to extreme waves, and because of the climate change, these wave patterns are also changing. So we'll be saying that certain coast is constantly eroding, but in a different area, probably we may have accretion. Okay, waves also affect coastlines, harbor facilities, and induce violent motions for moored ships and floating structures, which in turn become secondary loads for anything like breakwaters or piers and things like that. The behavior of structure under extreme waves is different from normal conditions. So we should also see in when we are installing such structures. And reliable estimation of these wave forces is the heart of installing any ocean structure. So we should understand the process, okay, and also select appropriate wave theories so that the design is proper, and determine the coefficients and things like that so that we get the correct numbers. Next slide, please. So when we say wave structure interaction, we are talking about any structure that is installed in the ocean. They may be subjected to the waves and currents. So because of the flow, you will have drag and inertia, and the wave may get diffracted or reflected. So you will have various loads that come because of this. Okay, then we should be looking at exactly what are the types of the loads that will be coming for the type of the waves that we will expect on the structure during its lifetime. After we install, we cannot say we did not design the structure for a freak event that happened after 2 years. So we have to consider the something that is called as like 50-year design life, what is the wave that is expected, or 100-year design life, what is the wave that is expected. We should be designing the structure for those waves. Okay, and then the linear theory and also nonlinear theory, and non-breaking wave forces and breaking wave forces. Okay, we should be dealing with all these things. And also, when we go into deep water, we have to see how the wave loads will, what are the appropriate wave theories that we should be applying, and then how the wave loads will be changing. These are the things that we'll be dealing. Next slide, please. As theoretically, we use Morrison equation to get the wave load. Basically, it has two components. One is drag and inertia. Okay, and there are different theories or empirical formulae for various regions to estimate what will be the loads. Next slide, please. And basically, when we say design, these are some of the things that we consider, and this is the complete process that is involved in classification and design of the structure. Basically, what is the wave? Is it non-breaking, breaking, or already broken? Okay. Is it a pile support, pier? So we have to see soil structure interaction and methods to arrest long-term soil erosion at the foundation. And also walls, is it a wall, seawall, bulkhead, and things like that? Is it rubble or groin and things like that? And then go on about the design for the type of the structure. Next slide, please. And for the marine structures, there is a typo here. For the marine structures, basically when we say sump for the low temperature thermal desalination plant, as I explained the plant, we are talking about drawing water from 350-meter depth. Basically, in these islands, we install a caisson in 5-meter water depth to install the pumps, so that pumps will be pumping from that region. A bridge that is normally between 100 meters to 280 meters, that was the longest in all the line islands. Okay, runs from shore to the 5-meter water depth. Okay, and then at the shore, we may have the plant at the shore or in the wetting and drying region of the coast. Basically, that is to deal with reducing the pump losses and things like that. Okay. When we are talking about the sump, what we are talking about is a 3-storied LIG house, which with a dimension of 9 meter by 12 meters, okay, length and breadth, and a height of around 9 meters, which weighs around 400 to 500 tons, fully constructed, okay. And we deal with the overturning and sliding forces, and putting enough weight there, and then anchoring with enough rock anchors so that overturning is taken care. Okay, and our dilemma, if you can go along with me, is something like this. The project where we are installing is remote. Okay, we have to plan even from nut and bolt from the mainland. Nothing is available in these islands. So if the project is complicated, like I'm talking about a huge crane, I have to take it and I have to install it in the middle of the sea. So it is impossible. Okay. And the entire island, we are talking about somewhere around 7 kilometers long, and width at the minimum will be 200 meters from coast to coast, or at the max around 1 kilometer from the coast. So the island is hugely populated. There is no infrastructure, no crane, no lifting mechanism. We should be trying to see how we can deal with doing the project with minimal infrastructure. So what we do is the caisson that I talked about. We construct in stages. The first stage will be around 3 meters long, so that on the west coast of the island there is a huge lagoon where I can tow in a channel. Then I will be dealing with what is the depth of the channel, so that I will be dealing with the draft of the caisson, okay, and the freeboard and the what is it clearance from the seabed. Okay, this will decide what is the height of structure when I do the first tow. Then the depth of the channel will, based on that, we will construct the caisson. Okay, then the caisson in half constructed stage will be first pushed into the water to a deeper depth. Then it will be constructed up to 5 meters, so that we will get about 3 meter water, 3 meter draft, around 2.5 to 3 meter draft. This caisson, half constructed caisson with 3 stages of concreting up to that extent is stored around 50 kilometers, 25 to 40 kilometers around the island. Okay, to the site on the east coast where the where the steep bathymetry is available, so that we can install the pipe. Okay, so then in floating condition, the final construction is taken care. Okay, so and then the sump is sunk in the 5 meter water depth. Then when I'm saying 5 meter water depth, we are talking about CD. So with wave, we are talking about 6.5 meters of water column from tide to tide. So then the structure is 7 meter tall. Okay, then we have to construct the final stage after we install up to 9 to 10 meters total. Okay, then we rock anchor it, and this is the work that goes on for the caisson that I am describing. Okay, then we will be dealing with the what is it the sliding. How do I arrest the sliding, and also how do I arrest the overturning? Okay, so if I can increase the weight of the structure, the structure is stable. But if I increase the weight, my total floating body weight is increasing, so the body will become too much. So I have to optimize in such a way that I can do the project finally instead of lifting my hands. So what we do is we construct a 3 meter wing wall on both sides, on the seaward and shoreward side, so that while floating, this wing wall will be used as a buoyancy chamber. And after we sink, we fill this with sand and gravel, so that it will become dead weight after we install. So it will give resistance to overturning and sliding below the water level. These are the two, basically two structures that I am talking about. I would like you to visualize there is a building on the top half of the slide, right hand side. Okay, by the side of the building there is a bridge. I think this is Agati Bridge, which is around 200 meters. The pipe, the long pipe that I am talking about, is a 1 kilometer long pipe, HDPE. Okay, which goes from the sump, which is on the right hand corner of your slide. Okay, from there to around 700 meters into the sea. The pipe is a single structure, so to say. Okay, and it is about 630 mm outer diameter. It is flexible. Okay, and basically, it is supposed to take care of all the wave loads and drag forces that are there in the shallow waters, which will be around somewhere around 200 meters of the coast from 5-meter water depth, which is at the right-hand corner of your slide, to around 350-meter water depth when it reaches. But within 200 meters from this point, it is still at 35-meter water depth. So when we say wave and structure interactions or wave loads and things like that, we also deal with the wave loads on these pipes. How this pipe for a bigger wave load, it should not oscillate. So we have to weigh it down. But the pipe also, it follows the same story. Pipe is brought in 12-meter sections. It is welded in the island to reach that 900 to 1500 meter long from island to island. Okay. Then it is stowed out in a single piece with the weights so that up to 35-meter water depth, we will be installing somewhere around 5 tons per meter let me say 500 kgs per meter of weight, 5 tons per 10-meter section. Okay, so this is the weight that we install so that we can make the pipe stable up to 35-meter water depth. Okay, these are some of the problems that we deal with at NIOT. Okay, the second slide, second view at the bottom half is the beach that is formed as part of our beach restoration project. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah, this I already explained. If anyone has any question, I would like to answer with respect to the process of this plant. I want to make this interactive. Any question at all? This is the process diagram. Basically, on the left-hand side, you see the ocean temperature. Okay.
Yes,
On the right-hand side, we have a chamber where we evaporate the surface water. We will get vapor that is taken to a shell and tube condenser where it comes into contact with the deep sea water. The plant per se is highly popular in the Lakshadweep Islands because of one simple reason. We were say allergic to automation and things like that. We wanted to keep it simple. So even though the skill of the manpower locally available is very little, they were able to maintain the plant with our technical support. That means whenever something major happens, they will call us. We will say, you do like this, or you ship the equipment to me. We will get it repaired using the vendors, and we'll get it back. But the main running will be done by the islanders. Okay. With the plant operates with only 3 pumps: one for warm water, one for the vacuum system, and one for the cold water. Okay, the other pumps are minor pumps. Then next slide, please. These are 2 of the islands which show on the left-hand side the lagoon where the depth is around 3 meters to 4 meters. Okay, and on the right-hand side you can see the color changing. So initially in 2005 we installed in Kavaratti, the capital of this region. Then in 2012 we installed 2 more plants in Agatti and Minicoy. Okay, right now we are installing in 6 more islands, which will make it island plants in all the inhabited islands of this region. So basically this deals with the cost and things like that. These are the islands. This is the topography of the island where I'm talking about. On the west coast, you will have a lagoon with depth of around 3 to 10 meters. Okay, in pockets. We will deal with the depth available in the shipping channel. Okay, accordingly we will design the the caisson that will go in as the sump for us, and also the piers that you see for this bridge. they are optimized in such a way that each span is around 22 meters or so. Okay, in the deeper section, that means beyond the breakwater, what we did for Agati is even the piers are casted as caissons. Okay, that means the foundation is cast in the lagoon. Okay, and then we covered the foundation as a rectangular or a box structure, so that when we push into water, it becomes a caisson and it can float. We floated it to the region beyond the breakwater. Okay, and then we sunk the pier in that region, and then we grew the pier from that thing. So they in a nutshell, what I'm trying to explain is we were trying to play the game as per the resources available for us. Okay, so these are the basically these are the marine structures that we dealt with for the low LTTD plant. The caisson in the far end, the structure in what is it, the intertidal region in 0.6 meter CD. Okay, and then what is it, the bridge that goes from the shore to the 5 meter water depth. The sump that we are talking about, I already explained. Basically, it is 12 meter by 8 meter sump with a height of around 9 meters. Okay. The initial construction is around 2.5 meters to 3 meters with all the internal walls in such a way that after we install, we will be able to dewater to the minimum and then raise the internal walls. And the final constructed sump will be for a height of around 9 meters. This is the plan view and elevation for the sump. Okay. We deal with dead load, live load, equipment load, erection, and wind load, and also hydrostatic and hydrodynamic load. One of the things that I would like to highlight is when we are working for a for an interdisciplinary project like this, we should also see the loads that come from the various processes. Like during erection, there could be some additional equipment, or there could be some limitations where we may not be able to ensure the draft and things like that. So we have to consider the loads that come from the process and also incorporate so that no failure occurs. This overturning and sliding, I already explained briefly. Basically, we use different safety factors for maximum overturning moment due to characteristic dead load and also due to imposed loads. Okay, and sliding, we take, we assume the friction based on the seabed, and then we try to see the sliding is within the permissible limit so that we can arrest it. This is the calculation basically, which is in a nutshell, it is the heart of the project where we would like to install a very big structure using a lagoon that is only 2.2 meters or 2.5 meter channel depth. Okay, and with no crane facility, the only crane that is available is a Hydra with a maximum capacity of 6 tons. Okay, so this, in my view, this is the entire base for the entire project for this part. So we go with floating stability and also the RAOs for the sump so that everything is within the limits. This is the towing route for Minicoy Island, which I think was somewhere around 30 kilometers from starting to the end. I will come to the next part of the this thing, case study, where we we installed a submerged groin in the Pondicherry area to restore the beach that was lost due to various processes. Okay. This is a three-part project basically. We have submerged groin which was done by us. Okay. And the beach itself is the Pondicherry coastline for the city itself was around 2 kilometers or so. Okay. And part of the submerged groin, we were able to restore somewhere around 600 meters to 800 meters of the shoreline. Okay. Whereas towards the south side, there is a fishing harbor which was the main reason for the erosion of the beach in the first place. Okay, and our proposal was a three-part proposal where submerged groin is there, and also submerged breakwaters for around 800 meters or so. That is each piece is around 50 meters separated from the next piece by 25 to 50 meters, so that when the wave comes, we are not stopping the transport, the sediment transport completely. At the same time, we are trying to reduce the intensity of the waves using the submerged structures. So this was the proposal. And the third part of the proposal is the fishing harbor that is towards the south, due to the currents that are available in that region. When the northwest monsoon comes, all the sand will go into the fishing harbor. So they have to dredge the harbor anyway. So what we proposed is the dredged sand should be deposited in the area between the fishing harbor and the submerged breakwaters, so that the beach can be sustained. This is the complete where we completed one part of the project. Next slide, please. So if you see, coastal erosion is an alarming situation where everyone is affected and everyone is talking about. Next slide, please. The reasons could be man-made, okay, or they could be natural because of changing wave patterns and things like that. There are various solutions. Hard structures involve sea walls, groins, and offshore breakwaters. Okay, soft structures involve beach nourishment and sand bypassing. Hybrid solutions involve beach nourishment and beach nourishment and groins and offshore breakwaters or reefs. Okay. One of the most common structure that we see is for the coastal erosion, any place we see either a seawall or a groin. Okay, and when we talk about ports, we will have a breakwater. Okay, any hard structure, once it is installed, basically it stops the sediment transport, and once the sediment transport is stopped, the erosion will occur anyway, and so there is no replenishment of the sand, and then the beach will get eroded gradually. Okay, so when we talk about a sustainable solution, we should be looking at how do we ensure the replenishment of the sediment, and so to say, how can we ensure the sustainability of the beach? Part of that, a groin or a seawall, when we look at it, when you have a groin for Indian environment, any groin, you will see accretion on the southern side and erosion on the northern side in general, because of the patterns of the wave. Okay, and when you have a seawall, you can arrest the sea encroachment beyond the seawall, but immediately after, immediately adjacent to the seawall on the seaside, the sand will get eroded gradually, and there will be a big deficit uh, of the sand for a vast region. This is what we found in Pondicherry. Next slide, please. Basically, when we took up this Pondicherry project, what we did was we understood the site conditions. We went by satellite imagery, and we were trying to identify what are the actual reasons for the erosion. Okay, and how the sea coast changed from from time to time. Then once we identified a solution, we took up a pilot project where we tried to pump up sand in a particular region, and we got successful results. Okay, then we went into the actual fine tuning based on the results of the trial. Okay, then we went into various combinations where we tried soft solutions like the geosynthetic bags, okay, and also the submerged groin, and the final solution of three-part solution where submerged reef and the submerged breakwater was given. I'll go through the process in the next slide. So, next slide, please. So this is the history of the Puducherry coast. During the mid-19th century, we used to have a very nice beach right until the construction of the harbor. Okay, after the construction of harbor, the city saw huge huge erosion. Okay, and eventually the Puducherry government resorted to sea walls. If you can see on the bottom half, I would like you to look and remember the white patches at the foot of the at the joining region where water touches the shore. Okay, and the then come back to the middle photo on the top. You can see the white patch at the end of the sand. That means basically what I want you to note is because of the seawall, there was a huge deficit of sand available in that region. Okay, and waves were breaking right at the bottom of the seawall. That was the conclusion from this photo. Okay, and when there was beach, waves were breaking much farther, and what is it? You have a soft sand layer extending for a very for a large extent. Okay, I will come back to that point at the end of this presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, these are the various regions that we identified. Sand bypassing, we tried as a pilot project. Okay, and then there was some huge sections with seawall, and towards the north there were also some groins. Okay, and we studied in depth the effects of all these things. Okay, next slide, please. These are some of the satellite imageries. Okay, next slide. We observed the water levels, waves, coastal currents, nearshore currents, sediment characteristics, and shoreline changes using satellite imagery. Okay, and then next slide. These are the wave roses for various patterns where we identified the predominant waves during the north, southwest monsoon and northeast monsoon periods, and also the changeover period. Okay, and also the significant wave height was studied, so that these values were used in our simulations. Next slide, please. Okay, then we studied the impacts of breakwater and seawall. What we identified is, as I was explaining, because of the seawall, there was a huge erosion immediately at the bottom of the seawall. Okay, this became one of the critical points where we were studying the possibility of installing a soft solution like a geosynthetic bag. What we found out was for a beach to form, we were looking at installing a structure in 4-meter water depth. Okay, and minimum width of around 200 meters or so from the shore. Okay, because of this topography, what we found out was the depth that was available for installing the submerged geosynthetic bags. Okay, was around was ending up in around 5 to 7 meter water depth in various regions, and we were looking at 3 layers of geosynthetic bags. When we looked at long-term stability of these bags, we were not so confident. So we had to go with again a solution that is based on concrete or steel-based reefs, caissons. Okay, we studied various combinations for the solution, and we arrived at the current solution. And beach nourishment also was studied in detail using various simulations. Next slide, please. This is a pilot project we took up, where we said used sand was available from the Pondicherry Port Department, where they dredged the harbor and kept it in the port area. So we took it up and we pumped it to the region between the harbor and the north of the city. Okay, and over a period of time, what we observed was around 60-meter wide beach was formed, which was sustained for two seasons basically. We took up this study in 2015 or so, and we were able to look at the results up to 2004, late 2014, and from 2013 to 2015 or so. Okay, next slide, please. So these are the studies that we conducted. Okay, the nearshore wave climate was studied, then sediment transport and transmissibility studies for the waves. Okay, and then we designed we ran numerical studies to achieve design beach profiles for nourishment, for various nourishment levels. Okay, and also we studied in detail the stability of the geosynthetic bag solution also. The top one shows the solution with submerged breakwaters. Okay, and the bottom one shows the effect of geosynthetic bags. Next slide, please. Okay, what we observed was when we look at the mean wave pattern, incoming wave pattern, okay, there is a difference in the orientation of the shore and also the wave. There is a difference in the angle between those two. When the angle becomes 0, then the erosion problem is solved from the further region. So we were trying, part of our solution, we were trying to rotate the beach for that decrease so that the erosion problem is brought under control. The left-hand side shows the view where a triangular wedge is shown in the northern region, which is labeled nearshore wedge, okay, and a southern reef, which was our proposed solution as part 2 of this project, okay, which is on the southern side of the city, which will ensure the beach for the Pondicherry area. This is the solution. Next slide, please. This shows the detail for the triangular wedge. The triangular wedge that we are talking about is somewhere around 200 meters long at the center and 200 to 250 meters long, wide at the base. Okay, and the top part of the region is made up of a steel wedge, basically, which is about 50 meters at the base, 50 meters long, and around 60 meters at the base, okay, and 3 meters height, okay. And bottom part is made up of boulders. In a basically it is a triangular prism with a wide base at the bottom, and as it touches the water level, that means a CD of 0, it will taper to a triangle of the shape of somewhere around around 40 meters or so, 40 meters long and 40 meters at the base. Okay, so it is a triangular prism, so to say. The design is in such a way that the waves are not blocked at the southern edge of the wedge, and the waves are allowed to overtop and go to the other region, whereas the sand until the what is it CD of 0 is trapped in this region, and anything above it is allowed to pass, so that the solution doesn't have too many negative impacts on the northern side of the region. Next slide, please. So next few slides show how the what is it sand the waves will behave when they hit, basically, and we ran in-depth simulations and for various conditions and various wave heights. Okay, next slide, please. We studied the effect of Tombola when we space out the offshore submerged breakwaters in such a way that we can avoid the northern reef completely. Next slide, please. This is the basically these are the details of the triangular triangular prism that I was talking about. Okay, we made it in 2 parts. The bottom half is made up of boulders. Okay, first we constructed a cross shape, plus shape figure with the boulders. Then we spaced out the boulders using using the Hydra. Okay, then the top part is made up of a steel caisson, which is, as I explained, 60 meter by 60 meter by 3 meter. This thing weighing around 900 tons. We floated it using air balloons, 2 meter diameter to 1 meter diameter, and then we floated, and then we checked the RFOs in such a way that its shape is proper and things like that. Then we sunk in the region, and then we completed the triangle by the remaining part with the boulders. Next slide, please. This is the detail for the submerged breakwater, which forms the next part of the project. As I was telling, it is somewhere around 50-meter long structure with a separation of about 20 to 30 meters between the structures. Next slide. This is the these are various stages of the execution, and in the middle of the project, Puducherry government has had to do the dredging of the harbor. Okay, they used a rainbow dredger. These are the figures of that rainbow dredger. We made them do pour the dredged sand in the region between the harbor and the this northern breakwater, northern submerged breakwater. Next slide, please. So these are the views of the steel caisson, steel wedge reef. Okay, next slide. We used airbags in such a way that initially the entire caisson is on concrete blocks. Then we inserted the airbags, filled the air inside, and we removed the concrete blocks. Now entire structure is what is it? Is on airbags, but it is tied to the shore using anchors that we installed on the shore. Okay, then the height of the airbags is adjusted in such a way that when I release the tension in the rope that is connected to the anchor, the reef slides on these airbags. So our main task is to control the roll and then ensure that it doesn't go and hit the water at a high velocity. We finally, in a gradual manner, we installed it at the location. And final part, the entire structure was floating when we towed it into water. Then we took it to the required location, and we sunk it there by allowing water into that structure. Okay, and this is how we completed the installation. Next slide. This basically it is a what is it? Two-part view where towards the viewer, the first disturbance that you see is the wedge inside the water. Then we had to construct one artificial groin so that we can stop the waves coming in and disturb the all the boulders that we put at the bottom. So that groin is in effect there. Okay, the wave patterns that you see right now are because of the groin. Okay, but in the final slide you can see the same thing after the groin is removed and with just the steel wedge that is installed. But I would like you to see how the waves are breaking here as compared to the initial view where all the waves are breaking at the bottom of the seawall that was there. Okay, this is in effect the net result of the entire project as of now. And the submerged breakwaters that we are talking about will extend all the way up to the pier that you can see at the far end of the sea in this view. Okay, we are aiming to restore the bridge between beach between the submerged breakwater here, submerged reef here, and the piers over there and the far end. Okay, this is the entire project that will be coming up as and when the project is completed. Next slide. Okay, and you can see where the waves are breaking. You can see the people enjoying. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. So conclusions, what we have to see is we have to consider the available methodologies, and also we have to see what are the constraints at the site. Mostly if we have availability of all the resources, we may not have to think about them like mainland projects, okay? And at some points, innovation is essential for completion of the project, okay? And we have in this talk we have seen how we can install a 350-ton case on 3 floors tall without too much of infrastructure, okay? And also launching of a 900-ton case on, as we have seen in Pondicherry, and also the background work that has gone on in hydrodynamic studies, okay? How we transfer whatever field assessments that we get to the actual design, and also implementing and then showing the long-term life of the project, okay? Finally, I would like to say assessment of functional requirements in comparison with the site constraints and hydrodynamic environment is crucial in the design of and demonstration of coastal and marine structures. Uh, Thank you. Next slide shows a small girl playing around on the beach. Finally, what we struggle is for the people to enjoy. Okay, that is the greatest pleasure that we can get. Thank you. Any questions I'll be able to answer, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, you have explained it very nicely, sir. Actually, we had the real life experiences. What are all the challenges that you have faced in your organization and your projects and all? And I hope our students and all the faculty members will be taking up this pleasure of studying the theories and all and interpreting with your life experiences. And everything was gone very nicely, sir. And we can able to feel out what are all the challenges that you can able to meet it with each and every completion of the project. So it was a very nice experience. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank
So
you.
we have some questions from the participants, sir. uh, so first question they have asked is there any Indian standards for the dredging of ports?
Uh, I am not sure about the question because most of the things are seller's market. Okay, in the sense dredging, when you see it can be what is it? It can be used with crude way, where you can have a pontoon and you are dredging the sand from the bottom. Okay, you have suction cutter dredges available, and also you have seen the rainbow dredger and things like that. And when you say I want to dredge a port or anything, basically we are seeing how much do I want to dredge, what is the area, okay? And for that, how much can I afford in terms of how much time can I give for the party to dredge the port. If I want a fast job, I have to bring in a lot of equipment where it costs a lot of money. Otherwise, if I can afford, if I cannot afford too much money, I can have a simple technique where it will be taking a lot of time. Okay, then standard in terms of how much part is dredged, there are standards available. That means how to measure what I dredge. So what we do is you take a bathymetry before and you take a bathymetry after, and you see using trapezoidal rule how much was the difference, and you say this much dredging has occurred. And if the sea is completely dynamic, so you will dredge part of it. By next day morning, you will have half of it back. So you have to live with it. There is no other way.
Thank you for your nice explanation, sir. And the next
Yes.
question, what they have asked is actually this desalination plant efficiency. what should
Yes.
be the desalination plant efficiency, because desalination has to be done for the seawater,
Ah,
and what are all the parameters that is controlling it?
yes. Okay. That is a very nice question. And when I say a very nice question, it implies I don't know that. Okay. But I will try to explain. Okay. Please bear with me. When you say desalination, especially seawater desalination, there are two methods available. One is thermal, like you boil and then you condense. Okay. In the Middle East, you boil using petroleum because it is freely available. So you will take it up to 120 degrees and then you condense it. Okay. For our region in the West Coast, we have availability of cold water. So we are going deep, and then we are condensing the vapor after going through vacuum, evaporation in vacuum. So efficiency, when we say for these thermal plants, basically we are talking about uh, what is the temperature difference available, okay, and then how much are you uh, using for a part of the cycle, like evaporation, okay, and then what is the theoretical efficiency and how much are you achieving. So for our project, the LTTD, because of the thermal and because we are dealing with water, the efficiency is nothing but m dot times latent heat divided by m dot times Cp times delta T. Okay, on both sides. So basically, we are talking with L by Cp into delta T, or Cp into delta T by L, which will come to 1% for every 6 degrees of delta T that I have.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, sir.
Uh,
Thank you so much.
then let me complete. Then when we go to see the RO plants that we have, okay, that are available commercially, and most plants that are operating on the coast, even in Chennai, are seawater reverse osmosis plants, where we will get a conversion factor of about 35%. That means every 100 liters, I'll be able to convert 35 liters into seawater. So when we have a project like this, what we have to see is what are the options available, and also how much can I sustain. In fact, all these islands have installed seawater reverse osmosis plants in the 1980s and 1990s. None of the plants survived for more than 2 or 3 years because of the membranes. They are very sensitive for sand. Okay, all the membranes got clogged. Within 2 years, all the plants died. And once the plant dies, we have to call a technician from the mainland to repair it. It will run for 2 months again, and some sand particle will come again. So that is one thing. And membrane cost for this plant is around 20% of the capital cost. Okay, so if the plants are going like this, if we cannot afford to maintain it, it will not be economical. So desalination per se is a location-based solution. There is no solution like we can go by this for this region or go by this for this region. So we are also working on solar desalination plants, where you will heat the water, surface seawater, using available solar radiation. Okay. Then, like the plants in Middle East, you use surface water to condense the vapors, and this solution will be useful for remote coastal locations, even on mainland, where they cannot afford high cost maintenance. Okay.
Thank you
I
for your
hope.
wonderful presentation, sir, actually.
Yes.
So the
Ah,
one last question, sir. They are asking about what is the breakwater construction creates
hmm.
both the erosion and the deposition of the sand particles. Can we stop the erosion created by breakwater?
By definition, when I say breakwater, I have to stop the waves. Okay. Then, yeah, a part of the solution, like submerged reef or submerged breakwater, what it does is it will stop waves up to certain extent, but it will allow the waves to pass beyond that height. Okay. If we don't want any waves inside the region, like a harbor, we cannot afford to stop to pass the waves. Okay. So it will not be possible to stop the erosion on the other side. Okay. Uh, at the same time, when we come to solutions like installation of harbors, what we deal with right now is how do we ensure that the northern region is still it is sustainable with minimum erosion. That is how the most of the modern day ports are being handled. Okay. I hope
Sir,
I
thank you,
answered.
sir. We have been
Thank you.
pleased with your answer, sir. And
Okay.
also, we have been very much happy for your detailed presentation and also the wonderful explanation what the participants have been asked. Hope they have been encouraging this type of seminars and all in the forthcoming future. Thank you very much for your presentation, sir.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, sir. Thank you,
Can I
sir.
leave now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Now I call upon our convener, Dr. K. Thiruvengadasamy, for the validatory address of this national seminar, Coastal Hydrodynamics and Structures.
Okay.
Dr. Thiruvengadasamy, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, sir.
A very good evening to all of you. Honorable Chancellor, respected Head of the Department, Professor M.S.P. Raju sir, faculties and students, distinguished guests and colleagues. I feel very honored to deliver this valedictory speech. I thank you all for taking the time to attend this valedictory address. Today's presentations are very hot topics and need of our topics. So as you know that Indian Indian coast is of about 7,500 kilometers, of which Tamil Nadu has a long coast of 1,076 kilometers, which is about 13% of the Indian coastline. So Indian coastline, especially the Tamil Nadu coast, is always subjected to several cyclones, monsoons, which results in coastal erosion, destruction of coastal structures, and it is well known that the 2004 tsunami generated a lot of colossal waste, both structure wise and the human life. So in this context, it is a very well uh, apt time and important uh, very important national seminar to organize in this heart of the need of our time. So I am very much thankful to Professor M.S.P. Raju sir. And so today's seminar, national seminar, we have got excellent four speakers, distinguished delegates. So one, Dr. Arun Bapat. Dr. Arun Bapat is an eminent seismologist, CWPRS Pune. As a matter of fact, I have invited in earlier conferences to our Amet University, and we have jointly published papers. So Dr. Arun Bapat's presentations on hydrodynamics and tsunami generation made some significant insight on what is the scenario, what is the effect, and what is the future course of action we have to take. So it is one of the wonderful presentation. The other presentation given by Dr. B.B. Mudgal, Director, Center for Water Resources, Anna University, Chennai. It's an introduction to wave hydrodynamics. So Dr. B.B. Mudgal made a detailed demonstration on various mathematical aspects of the wave theory, how the velocity potential is to be derived, what are the boundary conditions, how it works, how the wave energy and acceleration, what are the various aspects of the wave theory. It has been very detailedly demonstrated. And I am sure that this presentation is of very useful those who do research and for the students as well as PG students of our department. And the other important presentation is Dr. G. Beulah Gnana Anandi, Professor, Structural Engineering Department, Anna University. This is one of the very wonderful presentation. See, coastal structures and corrosion protection. The coastal structures, the various slides shown, or each slide has distinct important based on the site specific location, based on the purpose, how the coastal structures are applied in the realistic condition. It has been explained very well, especially the demonstration with the photos, line sketches on revetments, gabions, breakwaters that are very useful for the students, and bulkheads, jetties, timber jetties, piers. And to protect the coast against coastal erosion, what are the various methods? It has been very detailedly demonstrated. So this topic will certainly give a new insight to develop a new development of new research topics. The other one, very application oriented, very field oriented presentation. It's on hydrodynamic studies, design, implementation of structures for ocean marine applications. It was given by Dr. SVS Fani Kumar, scientist G NIOT. So Dr. Fani Kumar demonstrated first in the first instant slide itself demonstrated about NIOT wave energy project. And as a matter of fact, during my master's degree, I did a MS in wave energy work on the oscillating water column Trivandrum plant, physical model and numerical model analysis. And Dr. Fani Kumar gave many interesting coastal erosion project undertaken by NIOT, especially the hydrodynamics, breaking and non-breaking waves, stability of Quezon breakwater. Stability of Quezon breakwater, sliding and overturning is one of the very, very important aspect which needs special research due to random waves against the subjected to breaking and non-breaking waves. It is very nicely, it is demonstrated. And moreover, Dr. Fani Kumar demonstrated the interesting case studies on floating stability of a sump, metacentric height. As a matter of fact, our students already done some projects in NIOT as a project internship on metacentric height. And definitely it will be very, very useful. And Dr. Fani Kumar given a very interesting topic, how the NIOT executed many projects, especially the beach nourishment, bridging aspects, and how the nearshore wave climate, wave rose, wind rose diagram is developed. So as a matter of fact, our department, we have the Ministry of Earth Sciences project on tidal hydrodynamic stability of tidal inlets. In that, we use some of the data we got from NIOT and INCOIS, etc. So it's one of the very interesting presentation. So all the four presentations are very, very hot topic and very much relevant to ocean hydrodynamics and tsunami generations, coastal structures. So I thank Professor M.F.C. Raju to coin this seminar topic. Thank you, sir. And now, so it is my immense pleasure. I also got a lot of new ideas based on the presentations of Dr. Arun Bapat, Dr. Mudgal, Dr. Beulah Jnana Anandi, and Dr. SVS Fani Kumar. All the four topics, it gives me a lot of new insight and new research projects we can develop in our department. It is not only by me, by other faculties also. I'm very sure that we will get in touch with the eminent delegates and we will do the level best. So it is very, very important. And in my opinion, we must develop a new research consortium with the delegates who presented. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now I request Dr. R. Lilly from the organization committee to conclude this seminar with a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Andrian. Thank you, convener sir, Dr. Trivendasamy sir.
Thank you.
So today I would like to give the vote of thanks. Before that, I would like to inform our dear participants that the organizing committee will be sending you the feedback through the email link. Okay, once you fill it up, your e-certificate will be getting generated. So after this, so I would like to thank the management VC sir, Registrar sir, for giving the permission to conduct this national seminar on coastal hydrodynamics and structures. And also, I would like to extend my thanks to our HOD for his continuous support throughout the conduction of this program. And also, I would like to thank my staffs, and I would like to thank the colleagues and friends and everyone for their continuous support for this conduction of this national seminar. And also, I would like to give my thanks to the students who have been participated here. Hope they have been gained so much of knowledge from this national seminar. And at last, I would like to extend the my heartful thanks to the dear both external participants and the internal participants from all over the nation. And also, I would like to extend the thanks to my system admin persons, and also who are all involved in the presentation, and everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your patience. And I would like to conclude this national seminar with this vote of thanks. Thank you, participants.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
all. Thank you all.